And then it just asks like, can I get happy ending as well? And the woman changes her look, looks at him in a very like raunchy way, and went silent. He's like, $25 extra. You know, something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Hello. Welcome back to Think Talk episode 37. Super excited to be back again recording this episode because this episode is one of those ones that it's not the time sensitive one. We're not talking about news or what has happened recently, but we are talking about some very important concept. Yeah. So the backstory. We made a post about white people moving to the suburbs for family life and all that stuff, and this post actually on TikTok got a lot of traction. We had a few back and forth in the comment section, but someone made a very interesting point that the American dream sounds white, and that bit caught my attention quickly, and I'm thinking, wow, the American dream sounds white. Why is that? And is it actually okay for the American dream to be solely attached to whiteness? Because it doesn't seem like some other groups within the US are checking out from the American dream. And that brought us to today because we would like to discuss what the American dream is. What is it? Is it attainable? Does it have anything to do with race? And what does it look like today for each one of us? Yeah, for me, I don't live in the US, so I don't have an idea of whether I want to chase the American dream, but fair enough, maybe I would have something in my head as what that might look like. The second topic we're going to discuss today will be about, when we were looking into the American dream, something also caught our attention. Prostitution is illegal in the US. Why is that? And is it even still illegal today? Right? It's not illegal in all states. Of course, it's just in most states. But given the onset of some different type of content creation today and what it looks like, is prostitution still illegal? These are the topics that we will go through today, and I'm super excited to get into it. Ibra, are you excited as well?
Yeah, I'm super excited. Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
So I'll get right into it. The first thing is, Ibra, to you, what is the American dream?
By definition, not just as a case study or like example sort of situation, right? I would say definitely an American dream to me seems like the possibility to be able to achieve success regardless of your background or your financial class or whatever. You are able to at least have this sort of upward mobility, and I don't want to say do whatever you want, but something related to that, like
some level of freedom. Absolutely.
Yeah. To not have this sort of mental restrictions or societal restrictions into what you can achieve or how far you can achieve things. So that would be like a pretty theoretical definition of American success from my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think on the more average level, it looks like regardless of where you're coming from, regardless of your background, regardless of your anything, you are able to have the freedom to achieve success. And then defining that success in very, very simple terms would be being able to own a home, having a family, having, say, a car and all that stuff, and a good job that allows you to then collect a good pension at the end. This, very simply, right, is the average term of what the American dream should be. But of course, you still have the freedom to do much more than what I've defined as success, if that's what you want, right? So the freedom to achieve success based on what you have defined success as. Simple. Now, with that definition, do you think it is still attainable today?
Definitely not. Nah, I wouldn't say definitely not. I would argue that it is, for sure, but I think success is personal, right? Like, so everyone won't define success the same. So, and I think that is like the huge difference when it comes to that. But regardless of that, I would argue that, yeah, even though the US might seem like it's going through a lot of internal political divide or gender divide or all these things cultural divide. From where I stand, I feel like for sure the US is still one of the places in the world that you can still go and make things happen regardless of whatever obstacle you have to overcome or your background or this current situation.
Yeah. So basically, from your perspective, if you compare it to the rest of the world, the US it still seems to you that on average the American dream is still very much alive. Okay. Now, if this is the case, and I actually agree with you on this one, because when I think about it, the one thing that I keep thinking that might make the American dream a bit shaky is the ability to own a home. Because I think that's the one thing that is so difficult now, especially in Western society. It's so difficult now for people to actually make money, live their life, not put their life on hold or pause and try to make owning a home the only goal in life.
Yeah.
The ability to still have a balanced life and own a home today is a bit difficult.
Yeah.
Not a bit difficult. It's actually quite difficult. But I was also then thinking, but you then still have some states in the US where owning a home is still a very, very attainable thing. You don't necessarily need a 7-bedroom, blah, 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 but in some places, owning a home is still quite attainable.
Yeah.
But with what we have in the world today, so in the past, the idea of a job that should be able to get you to that American dream is as simple as working in a factory. But
Yeah.
that's something that has changed today.
For
What
sure.
are the things that are now driving the American dream to be alive? On average, if you would try to achieve the American dream, what do you have to do today from your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I also wanted to make that clear. Like, yeah, it's quite challenging compared to like maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago when the US was much more in a better situation economically, right? But it doesn't mean that it is dead. It's a lot more difficult, but it's not impossible. So you ask like what I feel like needs to be done to be able to achieve the American
like
dream.
on average now, especially because before you would think, well, for the American dream, I need a 9-to-5 factory job, I should be fine. And then people would then have different standards of what that dream looks like, and then they then do other things. But then the bare minimum is, even with a factory 9-to-5, even as a waitress 9-to-5, I should still be able to achieve the American dream. But now there are different routes to it, more routes. Now we have Wi-Fi, now we have the internet, right? Since the time in 1931 when Tony Adams coined that term American dream. Now we have many more things that gives you a route to it, and it could potentially also be that some of the things that gives you a route towards achieving the American dream is no longer viable. So from your perspective, what is viable today to be able to achieve the American dream?
In my opinion, it's not even about the American dream alone. For me, it's like a general view of life, and I think it definitely works in the US, or at least for the American dream conceptually. Is that the only way to achieve this is definitely not through a 9-to-5 job. You have to sort of have this entrepreneurial mindset to be able to achieve the American dream of today, because a standard 9-to-5 doesn't seem to be working for a lot of people, which is still working for a chunk of other people. But if you really generalize, a lot of people are still needing a part-time like job after like their main job to be able to make ends meet, right? But the second point I would like to make, aside being entrepreneurial in your mindset, is that you have to critically think for yourself to be able to achieve the American dream. I think the structure the government has laid out is definitely not working anymore for a while now. So the idea of go to school, get in loan to get in debt to get your degree, then you pay your student loan back, and a lot of people are seeing debt like from going to schools and still not being able to pay off their student loan, right? So that is definitely not working. So what works, in my opinion, is then you have to sit down, draw a personalized roadmap that works for you, because just following this whole idea that is being laid out, it's definitely not working. So you have to look somewhere else. People need to come
I
up
see
with
what you're saying.
this decentralized idea of what it is to make money. Like, for example, like in tech now, it was like a bubble. Now it's like busted, right? Now it's AI. Like AI is the thing now. If you're like really going into this whole LLM, MC, whatever this thing, it's like the hot thing now. But it's not gonna be
When you
there
said
for a while.
LLM now, it sounded like LLM.
I know LLM. Like this language. Like so. Like for me, it takes sitting like sitting back and just really taking a deep breath, checking all available options, seeing where a lot of people aren't really focusing on and going into that. And I think it's just a life philosophy for me. Like anywhere you are, if you have that kind of mindset, you will be fine.
I see. I agree with you. If you have the mindset that it's in your hands and you cannot just take what people give as a route to follow, of course you learn, you get information, but you have to build your own route. Um, if you are that way, you will always find a way, right? Because every system, hard, soft, whatever, there's always a way. And there are multiple ways. You just have to think through it. But from what you've said, it sounds to me like it's a lot more difficult to achieve the American dream, because just following the system of you go to school or you learn a trade, you get one job and you just push it through until you can get some sort of pension or one thing or the other that allows you to retire, for sure you will be able to achieve the American dream. And now that certainty has been reduced somehow, because even the idea of going to school now is somewhat problematic from my perspective, right? Because the type of debt that people go into for that education that does not guarantee. And this is the thing. Of course, education is very important. I will always say this. I think unless you are actually on the very upper class of society, I would always recommend education, because it's what actually allows you to level the playing ground a little bit. But that education itself now, it does not guarantee being able to achieve some level of the American dream, right? Before, I think when it was reasonable to take a loan, there was some sort of guarantee that you will be able to pay back that loan and
Yeah.
still be able to move on with your life. But that has changed now,
Yeah.
right? There's no longer a guarantee for this educational debt that people are taking. And that already impacts largely how possible it is to achieve the American dream. But there's also something new about the world. Yeah, so it's more difficult now. You need to get creative. But I think there's also a new system now, and it's the online content creation system. I strongly believe that a lot of people have managed to achieve way above what the American dream promises by being on the internet. And it seems now that if you would make a comparison of content creators versus 9-to-5 workers, of course, 9-to-5 workers have a better baseline, but content creation, it's a risky route to take. But now it seems like it's a system of, even though it's risky, a lot of successful content creators, you hear them, they just keep on saying, just stick to it. Consistency, and this is the thing, almost like a system, consistency gets you there, right? And a lot of people just, many people are now going into that, because you can clearly see that as a system to be able to achieve the American dream, it is arguable that it is starting to outpace getting a 9-to-5 and following that old system.
Yeah.
Right? At least that's what I've been seeing. But what do you think about that? Do you think this is true for full-time content creators?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we have been on this path for like a while now. I think it's not definitely something that started like that is new. We've been on this trajectory for like over a decade now. I mean, being that I also I used to have a very successful online, like a couple of successful online businesses like back then. And we are just leaning more and more into the online world. But for sure, yeah, that's definitely true. I feel like the introduction of like social media and this new internet thing that is like part of our lives now changed a lot of things in terms of how we see possibility of making ends meet. But like I would like to talk about what you mentioned about getting into student loan for something that is not really certain. I mean, I wanted to add to that, that's very true, right? And I feel like in 2025, when you asked what I feel people should do in terms of, or what people can do, in my opinion, how to get to the American dream, I would argue that if you, rather than taking a student loan, your chances of getting like a $60,000 loan or credit from a bank or whatever, and going into plumbing or HVAC or like what's it called, landscaping.
Even gardening, landscaping,
Yeah,
exactly.
I would argue that your chances are very much like they're higher than getting like this degree and going into like debt and hoping you get a job. It's like this control is not really there because you still have to be at the mercy of some company in this job application, but you can then take ownership of that and really do your research and feel like, oh, okay, yeah, if I get this sum of money, I can build this sort of business and I can just look into what people need. If you need to get some credit, do that. And I think why this schooling system is also failing is because our worlds are really changing at a very rapid rate than we've seen in like the last maybe 100 years, right?
I would even say 20 years.
Yeah, right.
Like we're in 2025 now, right?
Yeah.
Like the 90s, it felt
More stable.
much slower when it
Yeah.
comes to things changing and new things coming up.
Yeah.
AI is like how many years old now?
Yeah,
Did you see what Google released with VO3?
exactly. A lot of companies are going down because of
Bro, AI could not do a picture with 5 fingers like a year or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it has video with audio.
It's insane. And that makes it, for example, I'm like into digital marketing and everything. Like since the beginning of the internet, I feel like the world, or at least the educational system, hasn't really figured out how to really place digital marketing as part of tech. And the struggle, they were waiting, maybe that this time would come, this time would come. And at the end of the day, because of how rapid like it changes, they just couldn't keep up. You would need at least maybe 2 years to get a master's degree in anything, or maybe 1.5 years or whatever. But before you are done, everything you learned is already obsolete. It's already like it's dead. So then what they have to do is to like just add it as a form of like part of some courses in marketing, the traditional marketing degree or courses. So I feel like that's also like a very strong reason why the educational system doesn't really work these days, because a lot of things are changing so rapidly. And even farming, the more traditional, the way we farm, like AI is coming into farming now and it changes everything, and it's just these new ways of doing things, and I feel like it's definitely a problem. So I'll go back to the question about the online content creation disruption. I feel like, yeah, for sure, that definitely changes a lot. Yeah, I mean, you would argue it's fair because you would see some things, and like TikTok as a platform, for example, the barrier of entry on TikTok is so low that with the $200 or $100 phone, you are in. What you really have to say is of more importance, right, than what device you are using. And it wasn't always like that. If you had to go on YouTube, for example, you need gadgets, you need technology like abilities and all these things. So people are just making a lot more now and doing less. Remember this joke we used to laugh about, like when I could be a millionaire right now sitting in my own. I decided not to dance. I went to
during COVID.
during COVID when TikTok was really blowing up. Yeah.
You
And that's
decided
true.
not to dance on TikTok during COVID. And I actually, guys, in the comment section, we need to know how many of you regret not taking up TikTok early, so that because it's like maybe at this point I'm with what's his name, Kabilame, or what's this guy's name that was at last year's Met Gala, the Nigerian guy, the fashion genius, Wisdom Kai. Yeah, maybe if I was dancing on TikTok, bro. And I remember during COVID, I actually did some fitness content on TikTok. I was on a fitness challenge and I posted it. It got some views. I just deleted it or something, moved on from it.
Mine wasn't just some views, man. I remember like Afiz, one of our friends, right? He should definitely, I know he feels the same way as well. I remember, of course, we were working at this company together back then. And we're just talking about this new thing, TikTok. Like, I made 3 videos and the least got 15,000 views. Like, I didn't, what I did on those videos? I was riding on this Lime scooter. Lime scooter was new in Germany too then. So we were just like riding around, it was just, let me see what is going on this platform. I got like 20,000, 15,000, and I think 117,000. Bro. But to me, the problem was, I was thinking in my head, I think if I was not into digital marketing, I would have like been part of the people that just like the early breakthrough guys like on TikTok. Exactly. Because for me, I'm like, this is not new. We've had like other platforms. So the 15,000 views doesn't really mean nothing back then. It was like cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in 2009. So I just feel like,
Yeah.
why will I buy this? Is crap. Like, nobody's accepting this. So I'm like, why are you giving me 20,000 views? What does it really mean? Who are these people? But now thinking TikTok
Oh
as
my
it is,
goodness.
I'm like, man, I messed up.
Ah, you could have blown up like crazy. You could have started something crazy on that. Well, I would
Yeah.
like to know, like, because for me as well, sometimes I think about it like, it was just a few dance.
Yeah. It's insane. Man.
Yeah, but that's a game changer, right? And it's not just the American dream, even for this TikTok thing. It's a good point to raise when it comes to being able to achieve the American dream. But when you look at what TikTok is doing all over the world, bro, you see those guys in Nigeria as well, Pela. I mean, streaming. It's not just TikTok. It's the streaming platforms, and now you have people like
Kai Cenat and all. Yeah.
Speed.
Yeah.
These guys are multi millionaires. Like, they're doing so much. Even they just did the stream. Kai Cenat is currently running this streamer university thing, and I'm just looking at how big it has gotten and how many, the amount of streamers that wanted to be on in that streaming university, the type of following they have, how much money they are already making. DDG, also a streamer. You know, he was doing
Okay.
rap, but it came from streaming world or something like this. Like, there's so much. Adin Ross, so many of them. Very, very successful guys.
Yeah. So I wanted to now like track back to the other point that I was making in terms of thinking differently. And I feel like a lot of Americans that would suffer for this new age or new way of living that we got ourselves into would be the older ones. I would argue that a lot of them would be millennials, right? Because when you think about the streamers university as an example now, I thought, this is cool. But the idea itself, I went to like Kai's website, I checked everything out, and it was like a proper, the way he designed the site was like applying to get into Harvard or something. And that's the change right there. Younger people embraces that. They understand that,
Yeah.
and they are
Yeah.
changing so swiftly, like so rapidly
Yeah.
with the change than older people.
Absolutely, man, bro. I agree with you. It's a big problem. Like, I saw the streamer university thing, and I just thought about it as content. But I know that younger people are seeing it as, that's actually a route to wealth.
That's actually
If
school.
I can get on streamer
Yeah.
university, yeah, exactly. That's actually something that I have to participate in.
Yeah.
And they're so connected into how to do it. Like, even at work, right? I see some of my younger colleagues, and the way they do presentation now, the way they act in front of the camera and all that stuff is so fun and so nice to see. And I'm thinking, why am I so stiff? Why am I struggling to blend that into me as well? Because some of them are just so naturally. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
For sure.
Like, naturally. Okay, there's this guy that I see. I watch his video. I don't know if you've also seen some of his videos. Leos Kepi.
I don't think I have.
I think he's a gay guy, but he's jacked. So he's mixing between a macho way of talking, and then in between he just puts some sauce stuff in it. He has a lot of money and stuff like that. You know this guy, Leos Kepi.
Yeah.
He's a good looking guy as well. Like, he's so happy. It's just talking to a camera. But Ibra, wow. Like, it's so fun to watch. It's just, I'm like, no, this is something. Now, it's not that I don't have it a little bit, because I've seen it that for even people that are older than me, I remember doing a video editing program with Deutsche Welle, DW. And I remember when we were writing our storyboard. So there is a standard way of running. Oh, you want to make a video, you have to draw your storyboard, and you really need to draw it, and blah, 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 stuff like that. And I remember drawing my storyboard. My idea was simply, I'll put the camera, I'll introduce the video, and then just interview my colleagues. So my storyboard basically was a drawing of me in front of the camera saying something. And I remember the professor, like the teacher, is one of the very big editors at Deutsche Welle. He was mad at me. He's like, this can never be nice. Like, you should draw more, do stuff. And then when I finished the video, it's like, I never figured that someone can stay in front of a camera and just do stuff, and it's just fun to watch.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like even for our generation, we're still, better
For
than
sure.
even the much older
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
But I've also seen some people in the much older generation catching up now. Like I just noticed recently, I'm looking at Instagram and I'm seeing 60-year-old mamas. They don't talk. There's one that I saw recently, I forgot her name. She's not saying anything, but she started her fitness journey. And all she's doing is every day, she's just picking a nice song and just dancing in front of the camera. But she's dancing, like she's
Yeah.
dancing. And everyone's like, Mommy, we love you. Mommy, this
Yeah.
one as well now, she has cracked it. But that confidence to be in the front of the camera and do certain things, it's not that easy.
I don't think it's even about the ease. I mean, there are two things we discussed, right? I feel like the first one is why like the younger generations are always sort of better in terms of technology use than the older ones. I mean, I think there is this bubble that you get into with your generation that as you grow older, you don't really see that you are getting behind, or you are then moving, you are taking the back seat gradually as time goes on because of changing life activities, I would argue. Then the younger ones, they are the ones that are still learning, they are still actively in school. So they are just absorbing all this information as they grow, and they don't even realize it. Like, it's the point you made. I would argue that an average 20-year or 19-year-old boy now can be a successful content creator without having to try like a 30, 35-year-old person. Average. Because they just have it. It's like it's part of their
Yeah,
life.
exactly.
They are still in the system. They are learning a lot. The other point that you raised, what was the two things that you were talking about? I lost my train of thought.
I think I was mainly just talking about exactly the point that you made now, that they are much more connected to it. It's much more a part of their life, and it's just something that comes naturally to them.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Of course, we have talked about some of the negative side of things. I watched a video where a teacher basically said that in this internet world, we cannot understand how traditional education is suffering. That the time that they spend in school, all the teachers get to deal with are withdrawal symptoms. As if you are dealing with a drug addict that has not gotten their dose. So when they're in classes with you, you're just getting withdrawal symptoms. Lack of focus, no dopamine push, unless you package the content in a new way. Of course, a lot of people are arguing that maybe what should be happening is that education should change in the way they package the content. But now I'm even starting to think maybe that's not the point itself. I think education should be much more open now. For the American dream to still be achievable, I think we need to move completely from an education system that has specific time for when you start and end certain things. I think it needs to be much more open, where we almost go back to the days of the Greek philosophers just continuously educating themselves through conversations and experience and research and all that stuff without a defined time for when it should end. I think we need to move back to that. That's the first thing. And then when it now comes to the curation of the content, I think it should also be much more freedom to do it, so that everyone starts to take responsibility for the direction that they want to go much earlier, because the internet already allows them to do that today, right? And then school is more just now this rigid, forceful thing that, let them take their time. Let them, of course, it puts the burden on the parent, because you at some point you want your kid to go off on their own. So maybe that should still stay, so that it creates some pressure for the kids, but they can find what they need to do. And it's not to completely cancel what is currently existing, because, for example, certain jobs still require that if you still want to be able to prove to the medical schools that you should come in and be able to actually become a doctor, you still need those grades. But those should be very open, such that if I would study and be able to take the exam, well-curated exam, to be able to get into medical school 5 years earlier, I do it. If I need 20 years, all right, cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just leaving it to the exams are there to be taken, but I guess this is also very far-fetched. That kind of drastic thing, a lot of people will push back on it. Now, back to the American dream topic, of course, and I tie that really to the American dream. We see that the internet has created more opportunity. It's much more difficult following the traditional route. I want to ask you what your thoughts on the idea of this one of our followers that basically said it sounds white. What do you think could have been the reason for that kind of connection? And is it reasonable to keep that type of mindset?
I feel like when it comes to the topic of success or what an American dream or the American dream is, we all have different ideas of what that means. And largely, a lot of immigrants, like myself, the way we view it is what a lot of people would call, the white American dream or the white way of living. And especially a lot of Black Americans or African Americans would call it. I don't know why that is. I mean, you can also see from the comments that we've already had on some of our discussions from the last episode that we did, because we talked about
White stereotypes.
exactly. They believe, now I'm talking about a lot of Black Americans, not every one of them, because with the movement of like Black fatigue, now we see that a lot of African Americans are also having a lot of pushbacks on what it means, like Black American culture means, and what it means to be African American in the US and all these things. So like we sort of, they feel like we have this idea of that is not ours. And I find that ridiculous anytime I get into these sort of conversations. They believe most immigrants genuinely want to be white, and they believe we feel like that an African immigrant in the US doesn't also face racism, and somehow we are against them. And openly, I've always had this at the back of my mind during this back and forth that we go in our comment, that you go in the comment section with some of our I enjoy just reading them. The whole point is to have a discourse around this. It's not about wanting to sound maybe somehow superior, because people feel like immigrants shouldn't. I mean, if you stay in the country, if you live in the country, you are also entitled to participate in the politics, or at least in the economic discourse, or whatever cultural discourse of where you are, right? Or at least
Absolutely.
And also for this second fact that we discussed, that African Americans are sort of the frontiers of what an average Black person is. They didn't choose it. Like, they are Americans also. And America has put itself in this front seat of the world. We all know that. So it automatically puts them in that situation. And that's why, to answer a lot of people's questions, like why do these people come to our country and talk about it? That's why, for me, I feel like it's important to talk about this, because you guys are like the representation.
It is important. It's important because, well, maybe African Americans are the frontier, blah blah. But it's absolutely important because you live there, and for you, your experience will be at least a bit similar. If not exactly the same, because you don't have the history that they have behind it. When a white person sees you, or when the system interacts with you and sees you,
I'm a Black man.
all they're saying is a Black person.
Exactly.
Right? So to come and say, you're saying this, or in this country you shouldn't say, it's all bull crap. This one, I'm not even trying to be soft on it. Of course, we want to have the discussion, but there's just some very silly stuff as well. It's like, what are you talking about? Is it how we're talking or not? But to say that someone doesn't have the right to have an opinion on a particular topic, extreme bull. That opinion doesn't have to be right. Can do whatever. But no right to have an opinion, absolutely bull. I would double down on that one.
What was your question again? I think I forgot I lost my chain of thought also.
Yeah, my point is, so you already answered why that we got the information of, well, what you have described sounds white. Yeah, so the American dream from our perspective sounds white. Even though we're just talking about upward mobility and success as whatever you have defined success as. But from my perspective, it seems like this is probably, you're right, it's because maybe a lot more white people have achieved, quote unquote, their own version of the American dream. So when you talk about the American dream, it's attached to them. I do find it a little bit unfortunate, because it is the American dream. And for every American, even including immigrants that move to America, that dream should be attainable. This is what the American dream promises as well, regardless of your race, regardless of
your background,
where you're coming from, regardless of your background. You should be able to achieve what you define as success for yourself in the US. So to then say that it sounds white is a little bit funny. My other question was then that, from your own perspective, how does that impact other groups from being able to achieve it?
I think that says it all, right? I think going back to reference this lady that dropped that comment, she actually made a video about the post that we made.
I couldn't find the video anymore.
Maybe she deleted. So like, she was quite emotional about it. And I've had some heated conversations with people that always end in that direction, right? So I don't know why it has to be different. I feel like I have like a vague idea, or at least my opinion of what I think it is. I feel like for some Black Americans, they really detest, is that's not the word. They really
The test.
detest. Nah, yeah, it's somewhere in that direction. I'm looking for a better word. They really want to stay away, for the lack of better word, right, from anything that sort of feels white. I'm back in Nigeria. The definition of success.
It's the same as anywhere in the world.
So me moving
Exactly.
to the US, it's not some ideology that I've been sold. A lot of Black Americans have that idea about it, because I do have this kind of discussion a lot. They strongly believe that we are being sold something that is not ours. But what I'm pursuing here is exactly what I will pursue in Nigeria in terms of the definition of my success. But I just want to play in a bigger market, if that makes sense, in a global market.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So why they think like that, I believe conspiracy theory, conspiracy theoretically speaking, that the system, the matrix, yeah, that's the right word. The matrix has done a very good job in putting some people and wanting them to remain in a victim.
The victim mentality is definitely an issue. And a lot of white people in our comment section are actually misunderstanding some of our posts and saying, oh, we just like to be the victim all the time. And I want to reiterate it very clearly. I don't see myself as a victim. Of course, things have happened in the past. Things are not usually black and white. There are nuances to everything. Some of the things that we say, it's not necessary that it has to be absolute for every single person. Yeah, but this is our perspective and opinion. I'm not a victim, right? I'm dealing with the world with the challenges that comes with it, with the advantages that comes with it, and we keep moving. Even when we know, for example, that I live in a Western country. Of course, I don't have the same opportunities that the system will allow as people from that country. In the US, it's not only about immigrants, but there's actually a bigger advantage for white people as well. This is also why they achieve the American dream easier than other races, which is black and it's Hispanic and all that stuff. Those things exist. But if I would be in the US, all I would see it as is, okay, it's a bigger challenge. Hopefully in the future, we can achieve equity and equality through representation and actually gaining enough power to change the system. But other than this, I'm not going to be stuck in the victim mentality because there's already enough opportunities simply by being there, right? However, this won't be true for everyone. We understand that and it's fine, right? Some people will be unable to move past the past or move past some of the more difficult situations that they are faced in life. This can happen, right? And that's okay. But when we say it right here, that we don't have the victim mentality, we are not victims, we keep pushing, challenges come and go, we mean that for ourselves, and it's not trying to,
You were talking about opportunities and how you have to play. And isn't that's true for all immigrants anywhere in the world? You don't have the same sort of level playing field when you move to a country, and you understand that fact and still move forward knowing that fact. So it's not just an American thing. As an immigrant in Germany, you have hurdles that you have to face to be able to finally be able to compete with the citizen. So now I'm saying this because, like I said, I've gotten into a few conversations like this with a few African Americans, right, that I know personally here. And it's this idea of, oh yeah, you don't know what it is. And I get that. You explained that really well, that, people, we don't have, like, we have different backgrounds. But where does that leave you? If you are being asked, for example, what is an American dream for you? And all you have to say is every reason why you can't achieve that, everything bad that has been done to you, and not one single thing on then how do you move forward? And that bothers me a lot. This is not just like with this, but with life generally. Okay, I understand this has been done to you. This has been done to you. This is terrible. I get that. So they're not really then saying, how do I then move forward? What does that mean for my life? Am I done then? Is this over for me?
I mean, to be fair, some people from other groups, they're willing to check out. They want even segregation now, right? Even though segregation has been shown that it negatively affects the lower class, negatively affects the minority races and all that stuff. Some people within minority races still want segregation now because they don't know how to move forward with other races. Anyways, I don't even want to get into that. Interestingly, we were talking about content creation on the internet and being able to achieve the American dream. But there is a very spicy group of content creators that we haven't talked about. And it's the it's the, how do I put them? I want to put them in a,
The onion ladies.
yeah, exactly, the onion ladies. It's a very good segue to our next topic now. So these ladies, not just ladies actually, content creators that are dealing with sexual related content. They're on OnlyFans, on Instagram, on Twitter. They're also making bag, right? And it's a thing. In fact, OnlyFans, for example, is most popular in the US to the point that they're paying taxes, my brother. Like they're paying taxes. They're writing off things that, yeah, I bought a camera, and they're literally writing the tax, getting the tax write-offs and all that stuff, making bags, setting us up in a company structure. They're setting up groups, they're setting up brands, right? But they're sex workers, but virtual sex workers, quote unquote, for now. And this is legal. However, prostitution, which brings us to the next topic. Prostitution in the United States. It's legal in most states. Of course, there are some states that is fine, like Nevada, I think. But in most states, it's illegal. Even the soliciting sex is illegal. Right? So not just that they offer it, if you ask for it, that's also illegal. Why is that? And I want to structure this a little bit. Because we know the whys and all that stuff. But I wanted to even structure it better. So I also list it out now. And I'll pick it one by one and get your thoughts on whether that's a reasonable reason or not. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So what I did was to quickly just, because ChatGPT is known to give you a very good summary of the internet on the reasons why certain things are happening. And the first thing is, well, the reason for prostitution being illegal in most states in the US has to do with the fact that the US is largely influenced by Christian values, so for moral and religious foundation reasons. And sex outside marriage is viewed as a sin in Christianity for this reason, especially for money. And for these reasons, the lawmakers back in the early American history, they built that into the norms and into the law. Does this make sense or not? And every time you tell me whether it makes sense, keep in mind that we now have this virtual sex working thing and it's legal.
I mean, I feel like it definitely doesn't make sense to me. And I know why I feel like it's so. I think one thing that the US is definitely struggling from update on a lot of this of their amendments, so to say, right? So and I think it's the same for a lot of countries also. Like, to really update some things is quite difficult. You have to go through this rigorous process, and I would argue it's more of that, or more about that, than their Christian values. Germany is a more Christian country than the US, in my opinion, and prostitution is legal in Europe, for example.
Would that be that at least in most countries in Europe, in some countries in Europe, Western Europe mainly, but would it be the case that the lobbyists for legalizing prostitution in Western Europe are just much more successful than the American lobbyists? Because they're actually lobbyists in the US. And usually what lobbyists would do, organizations that want it to be legal, they will even draft what the policy should look like, and it's just passing through readings.
No, my argument is I don't think the US is a more Christian country than comparing it to Germany now. So I don't think they have the religious ground for the claim that they are saying. Maybe 50 years ago, maybe 100 years ago, they do have that, but not the US right now. They don't. It's not as religious.
Yeah, I agree. And even when you look at the very clear fact that OnlyFans is legal, right? Pornhub is legal. How is this not then completely smashing that religious ground? Because the idea of the religious ground is, again, sex outside of marriage, especially sex for money,
Yeah.
right? And also sex for everyone to watch. And now you have all these sexual content creators. How is that legal in a country that is standing the moral ground on prostitution?
I think it's more about updating their laws and stuff than the religious thing. I think when they made this statement that you just read, it was absolutely true. But that was probably maybe
A long time ago.
100 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, much longer time ago. Okay. Now, the second reason, according to ChatGPT, is for public health concerns. So the idea is that the government believes that prostitution spreads STIs, and for this, so STIs, sexually transmitted infections. And for this reason, they believe that they need to regulate it, right, to ensure the safety of both the sex workers and the client and the public. But the American government believes that it's difficult to actually legalize prostitution and enforce safety. What do you think about this?
I mean, thinking about the healthcare system in the US, maybe they are right, but it doesn't make it true for every country.
But the healthcare system will only kick in when things have gone wrong, right? I think when you have a structure like what they have in Western Europe, for example, not with regards to healthcare, but with regards to how they have legalized it, where it can happen and all that stuff, there's a lot of preventive actions required.
For sure. I mean, I definitely agree with you. I feel like if they are bothered about STIs or STDs, they are better off making it legal and being able to control, because they can then better control the situation, like we've seen in Europe as an example. Also, it's like another example is like the weed situation. Like for so many years, it's been illegal in like so many places in the world, but now they've come to the realization that if we actually do control these in a way that people can now use it, that helps more people. I mean, there's no absolute in this sort of situation, right? But you have to just weigh your options, which is a better outcome. Then when you legalize something like that, then you can then control it. You can then say if you have more than this kilogram, it's then like a crime. Then if you do more than, so all these things can then come into play. And if you put that in like the situation of the XTDs and all, then you can control things and be like, oh, you have to come for regular checkups. You have to do this every 3 months. If you don't do that,
exactly, and you can do it as a group. They will have an association. There will be companies that you can hold responsible. So instead of trying to hold 1 million sex workers responsible, you probably have 10 massive companies that will always make sure that the workers underneath, or 50 massive companies, and it to be on the state level anyways. It's like, I think this is probably also why in Germany, for example, you go to a city and you hear maybe they have 5 houses where this is happening, and they can actually control those houses and what needs to go in there when it comes to preventive actions.
For sure.
And as I keep reading these things that is coming from ChatGPT as some of the reasons for the illegality of prostitution in some American states, I'm thinking, what? I think that they are just looking at prostitution in at least, now this is not me advocating for prostitution. However, when you think about what's happening with OnlyFans, I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have. It's either it's there or it's not there. Yeah, it doesn't make sense with this OnlyFans and prostitution thing. But I'm looking at this and it's talking about how prostitution might foster human trafficking, underage sex, coercion, and exploitation of young girls, etc. But I think they're only looking at it in a vacuum of when it was illegal, this is how it is run. But when you have a legal route to it, why should it still foster trafficking and exploitation? Because that's the argument that a lot of people have made for things like OnlyFans. In fact, they call it freedom.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you said, because I was also having this constantly at the back of my mind for every statement that I made. That does not mean when I say this that I'm then advocating for prostitution. I would say partly it's not going anywhere, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Women from ages, I think prostitution is said to be the oldest profession for like ever for humans.
And it's not just women. I even want to correct you there. And in today's world,
Yeah, exactly. It's like engaging the world and seeing how things are. For sure. And I said women because I was trying to drive to this point where whether directly or indirectly, sex is a valuable asset for women.
absolutely, absolutely.
Even in a relationship, it's part of the deal.
They use it, right? Wives will use it to control what their husband should do.
Exactly. So then people are going to be in situations where they need to get out, and that will be the only thing they have. And that's why I'm thinking, maybe, because then what happens if you make it illegal is people are going to do it anyway. And then as a government, you don't have control. So partly I feel like, that's what I'm saying actually, because I've seen the
I'm
other
with you.
side of it and it doesn't look good.
Especially when there's then the online thing. If there's like a proper crackdown and you don't have loopholes like what you have with OnlyFans, because now what OnlyFans is doing and what other sexual content creation platforms are doing is you get to write these girls as well, and you can give gifts via OnlyFans, which could stand as payment for when you link up to actually
do something.
It's just a loophole, and it's a
It
very
is.
legal loophole.
It is.
So what are they getting at? Get more control, get involved. Another point here that they have said is around social stigma and gender politics. So some of the critics of prostitution are saying it's creating this gender inequality, it's commodifying people that are into it, and it also facilitates abuse. Oh yeah, this and that. If they legalize prostitution, the angle the government is coming from here is it will now make those things even bigger. Do you agree with this?
That's a tricky one, actually. The stigma is going to be there anyways. Me now saying I'm advocating partially for this, or at least because there's this hypocrisy that is going on with having OnlyFans and saying, oh, this is not a country where prostitution is legal. That's a mismatch, right? But then it doesn't mean that I would respect a lady that goes or that chose that, for example. I would feel like, you know what? I respect you in a way. Cool, you have to do what you have to do. Maybe respect is not the word. Then I don't want to
admire
or even be.
You don't have to like it, but every human, you get to respect. You're doing what you have to do.
Do what you have to do.
Not my cup of tea.
Exactly. Yeah, then I don't have to admire that or feel like, oh yeah, you know what? It's a noble thing. I
want my daughter to be that.
Exactly.
Or my son.
Or get married to someone like that. So it's like, for sure, there would be. Society will still see the way, especially men from a man's perspective now, right? We'll still see the way we see it, but it makes it less dangerous for people who need to do it, is my point.
Maybe no one needs to do it, but at least for people who want to do it. Let's put it that way. If you need money, then you go and sell cold water on the traffic. Like, why must it be prostitution?
Because it's easier.
They want to.
Yeah, they want to actually.
Yeah, exactly. You see, there's always a choice.
Yeah.
So there's never one person that needs to do it. I think when we start moving into the need to do it territory, I would even worry that we're going more into trafficking and coercion again. I think everyone should have a choice on whether they want to do it or not.
Yeah, that's true.
And it should always be a case of people that want to do it. And I agree with you, the social stigma is not going away. But I do worry that legalization of prostitution would actually reduce the stigma a bit, because there's a little bit of understanding. The fact that we're having this conversation is happening because of some of what we've seen with online creators like OnlyFans creators. And what has happened there is that a lot more people is empathizing with them and opening to do it, because guess what? Money makes the world go around. And now that the information on what they make is becoming more and more public, it's changing how much stigma they face. It's changing how much commodification is happening. For example, Camila Araujo or so, she's an OnlyFans creator. I don't know if this is true, but she made pictures indicating that she was invited to the Met Gala. The Met Gala is supposed to be an elite of the elite kind of event, right? And now you have an OnlyFans creator saying, I was invited, I was there, right? And talking about social stigma. However, this is not going to stay. Maybe it's still the case because there's still a little bit high level of social stigma that allows people that are in it now to actually make unreasonable amount of money. If you fast forward and look at countries like Thailand, where they have it legal in places like Pattaya, I've seen people that are the most open-minded people in the world go to Pattaya and come out and say, this does not make sense. It cannot be like this.
Yeah.
You're walking on the street and 15 ladies are like, come,
I've
discount,
seen videos,
15
yeah.
of us. Like,
Yeah, I've seen
this
videos.
is
Yeah.
wild. Exactly. So I also see a scenario where if it becomes legal, there's a moment where the stigma is reducing because they're making a lot of money, because by a lot of people are empathizing. It also includes selling feed pictures online. And I will get into the selling feed pictures online thing because it's sexual for some people, but it's absolutely not sexual for me. I will put on every ring light and take pictures of my feet if someone is willing
I
to
think
be
it's going
shelling
crazy
out
on
cash for me to
OnlyFans
do
also.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal, but even though I can't understand it, but it's linked to a sexual fetish, and
Yeah.
that's very interesting. But anyways, my point is the legality would reduce the stigma, more money, they keep making money, everyone is patronizing, blah, blah, and then you get to a point where the diminishing return will be smashing. Because it would take a lot to stand out to be able to make good money off of it, because a lot of people will go into it, and the stigma will come back again, because they will have very little negotiation position to even make a living out of it.
I feel like that is true, definitely. But what I also think is that it's more true for OnlyFans, for example, than traditional prostitution. I also want to make it clear that I feel, I absolutely also want to say that I don't think the shame should go away. Because what do we then have when we lose our moral on such sensitive or private thing, when it becomes a commodity?
No disrespect to any religion, but if I understood Garden of Eden correctly, it was a time when we felt no shame for being naked, right? So Adam and Eve, they did not know
They
that
were
they
not
were naked.
going around
It was just-
banging each other.
Who's to say they didn't?
I don't know. I'm not that. I
You
don't know.
understand?
Yeah.
And then suddenly they ate the apple and they recognized what shame was. So now if we take away all that shame and we can all move around naked, in fact, there's a new law now in Germany. Women are now allowed to be shirtless in public pools, right? And this is what I'm telling you about the lobbyists in Germany. They basically lobbied the government saying it's unfair. Men are allowed to be shirtless. So why shouldn't I be? Some people were making the argument of they should have just went for men should also wear swimsuits that cover their chest. But instead they went the other way of women should be allowed to wear swimsuits with their chest open, just a bikini pant or whatever. And a lot of commenters are like, I need to book my ticket to Germany as soon as possible. Because wow, But the point that I'm making with that is when we strip off that shame over the course of several years to come, we might actually end up in a Garden of Eden type of situation where clothes are absolutely not used to cover your body, but to make a different statement. Kanye West's wife. And she's
For me, it's even
absolutely-
about the slippery slope that I feel like is inevitable when the shame is gone. And OnlyFans is doing more of that in removing the shame. And I don't think that's good for society, right? Because I would argue that prostitution in itself, I don't think anyone who is into the traditional prostitution would be proud of that, would come publicly. Maybe porn stars, they've done that before OnlyFans age, right? They would come out and be like, oh yeah, they have a celebrity, whatnot, and this, cool. But like people who are not like famous, who are like in the corner of some brothel in whatever city, I don't think they would go to like a family dinner and be like, oh yeah, today was a good business. I had like 30 customers or like whatever. Like, it's still something that is quite frowned upon. And with the likes of like OnlyFans celebrating that, I think that's a problem. So going back to the statement you read, I feel like, yeah, for sure. That actually makes sense. That when they do like make it legal, that there is this less shame and
Commodification.
acceptability and becoming a commodity that happens with that, and that's a solid point, I think.
I see. I mean, here the government is making the opposite argument. So maybe we're actually making what you said is making a different argument on the same
Really?
topic. The government is making the argument that the shame will increase, more commodification, but also more abuse. But you are saying the shame would decrease, but the commodification thing you are agreeing, right? And less abuse.
Yeah.
But the commodification thing is what you feel is wrong for society. And for that reason, it should be much more controlled, right? That's the bad bit that
Yeah.
you... But for them, they're also saying the shame will increase.
No, it won't.
Yeah, and that's why I think, I agree with you. And that's why I think that the whole idea of why the government is leaving it as illegal at the moment is basically looking at prostitution in a vacuum. They're not doing the analysis of when it's legal, what then happens, considering human behavior and X and X. The fifth one is for law enforcement and crime control. So the idea of this one is that in many cities, law enforcement agencies have linked prostitution to organized crime, like drug use, violent crime, and stuff like that. That prostitution is always a part of those. It's always a part of those businesses. And prostitution seems to be the easiest one to track for now, because you have to display your girls somehow, and a physical meeting needs to happen for prostitution to take place. And being that it's the easiest to track for now, if they legalize it and they can no longer raid brothels, they won't be able to catch some of the more heinous crime organizations.
I think that makes sense. But I also see like a loophole in that, right? But I feel like for the most part, that seems like the only point that is grounded in a way in all these things that you've read so far, right? Because for sure, I believe that criminal organizations use this a lot. And yeah, when it's legal, it's then a lot difficult to, but we could argue the same for nightlife. A lot of nightlife businesses like nightclubs are also doing this, and nightclubs are still legal and they still move money through that, right? So
You can make the same argument for cam girls like OnlyFans again. And for example, this is one of the arguments they're using against the Andrew Tate boys, right? A lot of people are saying if they're capable or if they had a business with cam girls, then more things must be going on in the background.
Not necessarily.
Absolutely. I'm with you, but that's a connection that they're making. Again, it flaws the whole point. It flaws the whole point. I think it's time that they revisit it. Yeah? There's a lot of back and forth happening with human rights movement and different lobbies, yeah, because they want more protection for sex workers. They want to reduce trafficking through transparency. So basically everything that you've talked about. Because now that it's illegal, for example, that one on health, it's illegal now. Now prostitutes are doing, I've seen some American cities with prostitutes on the streets. There's some videos on YouTube. It looks like
I've
those
seen some of
GTA
those,
drug infested.
Yeah.
It looks terrible. That
Looks-
shouldn't be.
It looks
Right?
dirty, man.
That should be packaged and treated better. Because then those ones now, they will spread STIs for sure. I look at it and I'm thinking, touching them alone, I will get sick. Look, being in the space, I will get sick.
Yeah.
Now, there's another way they also do it, right? And this is where the happy ending massage thing became a thing. And I saw a video of one guy that was just showing how it works. He went into one of these Asian massage parlors.
Yeah.
And, it was like, oh, I want that type of massage. And then it just asked, like, can I get happy ending as well? And the woman changes her look, looks at him in a very, like, raunchy way, and went silently, like, $25 extra. Yeah. Something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Now, I have a question for you. I have a scenario for you.
Yeah.
Let's say you have had like 3 months, you have been super busy. You've not been able to link up with some girls. The stuff inside is like super full. You might even puke sperm at some point. Like you're full, like super full, and you're like, you know what? Because it's legal in Germany, you being that you came from Germany, you need to explore something, and you decided you can't fly to Nevada, so you decided to check some of these Asian massage parlors, right? Now you have done your negotiation. Asian massage parlor, keep in mind, Asian, this girl comes out, she's lenga, like she's poof. She starts the massage. She's like, okay, take off your pants and everything. Everything is going well. You agreed to a price. In fact, you paid. Now, this is a key point. You have paid. She gets there. She is about to start, touching the big man. Outside.
Yeah.
Outside, what do you do? How do you move forward from there? The police is outside. It's a massage parlor as well, keep in mind. But you have asked for a separate interesting package, What do you do?
So that would mean that the lady actually was working undercover, right? That's the assumption.
No, she's not undercover. They just got raided. You paid already, but you have not gotten she. What are you doing?
I'm
man? How you-
definitely denying everything. I mean, you didn't catch me in the act, right? So, is no,
A black man with American police, they
No-
will knock you something.
no
You
face,
don't
no
catch me in
case.
the act.
no face, no case, bro.
So you're staying. You're not jumping out and running or something. Yes.
If there's no way to do that, right? But if there's an exit or like a way to, definitely you you have to run for your life, right? But if that's not
But
the
then
case,
if you run, they now feel like, oh, you must be doing something wrong.
then if you choose running, if you get caught, I think that's a worse outcome than actually denying the fact that, you know what, nothing, you have to get naked for massage, right? So
So let's say they finished that, you didn't get your massage for that day. Keep in mind you are already paid. Are you going back to get what you have paid for? Keep in mind, like, you're peak like this, and this Asian girl is Asian.
bro, man, I'm not going back, man. I'm just like this. I'm all right. Yeah, I'll be fine, because I feel like that should definitely be traumatizing to really know that you just escaped something. That
The whole craving will go away.
not
You're
necessarily
fine for another
but
6
I
months.
think the nervous
Okay.
system would then take over rather than the whatever response, the sexual system. So,
Yeah, but then say 5 days later, everything has calmed down. They call you and be like, Mr. Ibrahim, we're so sorry, that never happens. We don't know. I think some people just said some false thing. We're absolutely fine with the police now.
if I
and
was
we know
rich
that
enough,
you've paid. We know that you have paid for your service because you went to a good massage parlor. You actually went to a well-branded massage parlor. Please, we would like to book another appointment for you to come back to get what you've paid for. Are you going?
why is trying so hard to sell me this idea? If I'm rich enough, I think the outcome then would be, okay, you know what? Yeah, send your girl to my place. Let's do it at mine,
Do you do home service? I'll add
Exactly.
money to it.
Exactly. Because I'm not taking that
Because I'm
risk.
thinking, like, the police had already raided the place, right?
Yeah.
What are the odds that they come back 5 days again? It's not like they're following you now.
Nah, it's not a risk that I'm willing to take, man. Yeah.
So you're not going back.
Nah.
And what if they tell you, sorry, we don't do home service? You just charge it. Keep in mind, it's a Asian girl. It's a very good massage parlor, well branded.
You keep re-emphasizing that, bro. I'm not taking.
I
a
know
risk.
what I'm saying. Because you know what I'm like. Just
I know.
picture the Leng Chinese, Korean, or Japanese girl that's like, body is banging. She touched your body. It was so soft. And she was just about to go down there. And they're like, no, we will reschedule your appointment. Just come in. You're really sure you would just charge that?
Yeah, I think I will. Honestly, I feel like,
Wow.
even when I'm there, I know how I'm wired. I like to stay away from any sort of trouble like that. It wouldn't be as the same as if that never happened. If I eventually go back there, if that makes sense. You get what I mean? It's like, then I have at the back of my head thinking, oh, the police might just bust in anytime or whatever.
Yeah, but they just sorted it with the police. Are you not considering the fact that the police came, the police let them go, they sorted it, they continued their operation. So it must mean that they are very well positioned.
Nah,
they
I'm
have
not
already
trusting
told
them.
the police.
I'm not trusting them.
you know, I was thinking this.
No.
I was thinking you would say you're coming back and then the police is just waiting at the reception. The police is still investigating, yeah?
Exactly.
The police is still investigating and he's just telling them, call the next customer and tell them to call. Did this one pay?
Bro, nah, I scan for danger, and I think I've been, because my thinking then is, how can they then convince me that they are that connected if that happened in the first place? That sort of thing.
No. It's not a connection thing. It's like their brand, their business is set up in a good enough way that the police checked everything and they said, sorry, we are fine.
It's still the same.
In fact, they sent you an email
Yeah.
of an apology that the police made.
Yeah, it's the same to me because I know for a fact a well-connected, let's assume the same massage parlor now is owned by Donald Trump, hypothetical, and they are
Mm-hmm.
into that. As the president of the United States, I don't think there would be any situation where they are checking them out. Is my point, because they already
Yeah, I feel
know
you.
who that is. The
Mm,
system
I
knows.
see.
So they
I
are
feel you.
untouchable. There isn't a situation where, oh, we don't know you. You know who we are back end.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm not
feel you.
taking
Yeah,
that
but
risk.
God save you. Yeah, because where I was taking this scenario was basically if you say, yeah, I'm going back for my money.
Nah,
The
nah,
moment you open the door,
nah, bro.
hands up. If you move, I'll blow your head. So that's it from my side on the prostitution legality and the parallel to what we have today with online sexual content creators. We are not advocating for prostitution.
Yeah,
If you ask us what's the solution, make OnlyFans illegal as well.
exactly. Because if you ask me, I want it to be gone.
That's exactly because you know what? I want our girls back.
Yeah.
And I say it as our girls, as women and
Women
femininity.
generally.
The idea of
Yeah.
women freedom should not be so sexual. And this
Yeah.
is not to hold women's sexuality and say don't express yourself, but that's what you have boyfriends for. In fact, that's what you have friends for. Exchanging that for money is crossing a line too far from my own book. Now, a lot of people might feel different. That's okay. So we say that very strongly. The only reason we're having this discussion is that it also, and the way the discussion has gone, it also shows the complexity of the world today.
Yeah.
That there's so much nuance depending on how the topic has been tabled,
Exactly.
right? And that's important. And I really enjoyed the conversation for this reason, because it even shows the nuance within us depending on how the topic has been tabled.
Or what part of you is having the discussion? It's like, okay, yeah, this is just
Exactly.
a logical thing. But then I'm personalizing this whole thing
Exactly.
and I'm like, nah, this I know where I stand when it comes to like
Very
a
clear.
personal conversation. But
Mhm.
these are just hypothetical. These are just tabling down
Very
facts,
clear.
data, and
Yeah.
law, and it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like the trafficking and whatever dirty business that they are arguing for. I've said this like previously on our pod, right? Like I believe OnlyFans is also doing something like that because it's outrageous. I know, yeah, you can make a
It's
lot
a
of
lot.
money online, but for a lot of these numbers that we are hearing, like either they are fake or if they're actually true. Do you know, by the way, that OnlyFans is they're up for sale now, $8 billion.
Why are they up for sale?
I don't know. I saw that like I think 2 days ago. I haven't verified
Wow.
actually, so I'm not sure what platform or where I read that from. But I saw that and I'm like, if that's actually true, then why? If this whole
Mhm.
profit margin and everything these girls are claiming, if it's
If they're making all
claim
that money there, why would you want to sell? The people are saying this is how much I'm making from OnlyFans, but the money is not all going through or to OnlyFans.
they are
A
they
lot
are
of
having a
laundering
problem
is happening.
exactly, and they probably see a problem coming that they are trying to
Quickly run away from.
yeah.
We talked about it when we talked about the OnlyFans episode as well, that
Yeah.
it definitely looks a lot like money laundering. Right. And I'm 100% with you. In fact, for me, I think there's also a little bit of direct grooming. Let's not call it coercion. 21 is the drinking age in the US. But guess what? I've seen on Instagram an OnlyFans creator welcoming her younger sister the moment she clocked 18 and being like, oh, my sister, this girl looks like a child. My sister is in here now. This girl is like 20 years old or something. And she's talking about that 18-year-old sister that now has a profile on OnlyFans and people should follow. In fact, I would argue that they have lied about their age with the way they looked. The sister that was welcoming her younger sister looks like 19. The younger sister looks like 15. I almost wanted to send it to the police Instagram account.
I swear, because I want to
Because
say
what?
this triggered me a lot because now these are the same girls, the older sister now in question, that would probably say, "Oh yeah, a 30-year-old man, what are you doing with an 18-year-old girl?" Which one is worse? when you try to compare like things that are happening in the society now when it comes to like age, they are not really relatable. It just popped to my mind. That was just what came to my mind because I've seen that a lot lately where the world try to shame an older man.
Well, why is it then fine for the young girl to be able to sell our feet, our on the internet for an older man to buy? Why is that allowed? Why is that acceptable?
That's the definition of freedom these days, like how sexual liberal you can be or how promiscuous you can be. Because you know what? I don't have to account. No man has to tell me what or what not to do. Because now I can just have random shagging and being run through by everyone.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. And I mean, they make the argument that men do it, but I think that's also rounding up men into just the top tier men that actually have the options to do that kind of running around with girls. Most men are not smashing like that. It's just what it is.
It's interesting to me that those sort of women still don't see the difference in the value proposition when it comes to sex from man and woman. You give it away. I have to earn it. Two different. So why men would hail other men is because you have done something right to let her give you. So that's the point.
Yeah.
You are the one giving it. I'm the one having to get it. And I have to impress you. I have to do things to make you choose me. And that's work.
Yeah.
So it's different.
Yeah. It is different. Yeah. And of course, coming from the old world, that's exactly how it is. In new world today, right, it's changing gradually because men are now saying as well that you have to earn it. Right? I will give you the D, but you have to earn the D. And I'm more in that frame of course, as men, you're a little bit more open, but I'll be happy to just say, you only get this if you earn it. You need to be a particular type of girl.
For sure. And when you say that publicly, they'll shame you for it.
I don't care. I don't care. And it's not about having unnecessarily unreasonable standards. It's just about, we are not just taking what's handed to us. We are also making our own assessment and saying, what do I want to deal with? What do I want to mess with?
Yeah.
Wonderful. That was a very good episode. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the discussions that will come off of this because it really went into a lot of different angles that I am very excited about. Thank you very much for listening. Really appreciate it. Do not forget to like, subscribe, follow. We are on every platform. Comment. We want to further this discussion with all of you. Again, this is our perspective as always. Yeah. And we're happy to hear other people's opinions and perspectives as well. We're on every platform as always. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Thread, everything. And we look forward to it. Our further interaction. Until next time. Peace. Love. Don't play. Don't play.
Oh, you don't learn.